right, so we will call this meeting to order. It is the meeting number 12 of fiscal year 2021. We are here virtually on Zoom now, thanks to the town of Westborough. And pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westborough Advisory Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at www.town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. I believe it is on Westborough TV. It is also on Verizon Channel 28 or Charter Channel 192. Or you may watch a recorded version on westboroughTV.org under the government tab, Meetings on Demand. All right, and with that, quick review of the agenda. We have 3 sets of minutes to review. Thank you very much, Mike. And then for tonight, we'll look at the town budget. I believe, or it's my understanding that the town manager is going to go over a first draft of the warrant with the Board of Selectmen tomorrow night. And so we will probably then discuss the warrant starting on our next meeting. And then we'll have future agendas, liaison reports, public reminders, and then we will adjourn. Hopefully early. Do I have a motion on any or all of the meeting minutes?
Maybe we should do them one at a time. I would move to accept the minutes of meeting number 9, October 29th, 2020.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Beth. All right. We'll just quick go around the board here. Ms. Hensley.
Yes, Hensley.
Ms. Board. Yes. Oh, couldn't hear you. I saw that.
She's muted.
Oh, there you are, Melanie.
Board?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Leslie.
Leslie, yes.
Mr. Roush.
Roush, yes.
Mr. Beretti.
Yes.
Mr. Hugel.
Yes.
Ms. Blumberg.
Blumberg, yes.
And Mr. Bradley.
Bradley, yes.
And Keo, yes. 900. All right, the next set.
Anyone else want a chance?
I move we accept the minutes of November 7th, 2020.
Second.
I do have a question on them though.
Okay, go ahead.
This is the one when we were at town meeting,
Yes.
and down near the bottom where we took a vote, I'm a little confused just because we made a motion to recommend against it, but the vote was 170, and it seems like it should be 710 if our motion is against.
We probably, so there may be a typo that I didn't catch because we normally make a motion that's positive. So we may have voted for something which was not, like, there's a twist in there, and I apologize, I don't have that one open.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Because
So we recommended to defeat,
right.
which then potentially, should we have considered it recorded as 710 to defeat?
Well,
Well, we wrote, we made the motion so that we were a positive vote. It was the motion that's changed, I think.
I don't know. It's just the way it's written now. It's not,
Gotcha.
one of them's wrong.
I
Oh,
apologize.
Walter, how did I write it?
Says, a motion was duly made, Jay Hensley, that the AFC recommend approval of this amendment, but was not seconded. Discussion regarding the appropriateness of the recommended amendment followed thereafter on a motion duly made and seconded, Hank and Michael. The committee acknowledged the spirit of the amendment, but recommended against its approval by the town meeting.
So I think we go back to not a motion within the committee, but the motion on the floor.
Do you
And the
know how to
motion
do
on the-
Zoom meetings?
At
Is that
the-
your thing?
No, we had
Can you
a
set up so I can see all the
discussion.
people, not just the person talking?
We had a discussion and we decided that we were not going to support the motion on the floor.
We have tape
Yeah.
over the mic.
And the vote was 7-1 to approve the motion, and the motion was to recommend defeat.
All right, so
So we're missing a paragraph. We're
Well,
missing
I
a,
think
The correct vote is 7-1, not 1-7.
Yeah. It appears that I've transposed the numbers.
Right.
But if somebody feels that there's a narrative piece missing, happy to correct it. I mean, we know the outcome.
okay, so I guess the vote then was on a motion made by Roush and Beretti that the committee acknowledged the spirit of the amendment, but recommended against its approval by town meeting, and that was supported 7-1. I think that's correct. If you just change the vote to 7-1.
so we'll approve it as amended. Okay. All right, I can make that update.
I'm confused in the wording because are you amending it to also change the vote, but to also change the wording?
Nope, I think that last sentence, if you know what the last sentence means, there was a motion on the floor to add sustainability and climate change. That was on the town meeting floor. And I suggested that we would support that motion, town meeting, and that did not get a second. So the motion within the committee was made duly and supported 7-1. So I think if you read back to the beginning of that action, it goes from floor action to committee action, and the vote was 7-1.
All right. I don't have it in me.
All right,
Makes sense.
so vote on the amended minutes. All right, Ms. Hensley,
Yes, Hensley, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
thank you, Mr. Leslie,
Leslie, yes.
Mr. Roush,
Roush, yes.
Mr. Beretti,
Yes.
Mr. Hugel,
Abstain.
Miss Bloomberg, Ms.
That's-
Blumberg,
Yes.
and Mr. Bradley,
Bradley, yes.
8-0-1. Okay, and the final set.
Okay.
Walter, Mike,
I move we accept the Finance Committee minutes of December 10th, 2020 as written.
right,
I'll second that.
you. Any discussion? All right, we'll go around. Ms. Hensley,
Hensley, yes.
Ms. Ford,
Ford, yes.
Mr. Leslie,
Yes.
Mr. Roush,
Roush, yes.
Mr. Beretti,
Yes.
Mr. Hugel,
Yes.
Ms. Blumberg,
Blumberg, yes.
Mr. Bradley.
Bradley, yes.
Oh, and Keo, yes. 9-0-0. All right. So moving on. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at the town budget book?
I have the town budget book. I'll confess I haven't studied it very deeply.
It's yeah, there's a lot in here.
Started, but yeah, there's a lot more to go.
Yeah, I like the fact that there's a lot more narrative and it explains all the priorities and things of that nature. So, but it is a lot more to go through than it has been in past years. So I guess, well, to step back here, my hope is this is all in preparation for the meeting on the 28th. And trying to get questions to department heads and other groups that we might want answered when we're all together on the 28th. So it's, as we go through the budget, things that we have questions about or uncertainty that we want to have clarified or detailed. I think we just want to make notes of those, and then it may be for the liaisons to go out to those specific department heads and pass along our questions in hopes that they can answer them on the 28th. And so sort of starting with the town budget, we got a preliminary summary review of the school budget, and I believe what was passed was what had been presented to us, it sounds like. So certainly we can take a more detailed look at the school budget, but we were sort of given all of the highlights previously. And then the town meeting warrant, I think John Arnold did pass it around to folks today. It's still a little rough. I think there were some placeholders in there. There's probably additional items to come. So, we may get more clarity on it following the meeting with the Board of Selectmen tomorrow night. So for today, I thought focusing on the town budget might be the best use of our time. What are folks' thoughts on that?
I'm wondering if it might not be helpful if we take the biggest chunks and divide them up and ask, let's say with the liaison. So we have the police and fire and DPW, have those liaisons digest the information and synopsize it for the rest of the committee. And then perhaps some will volunteer to look at some of the other major issues like debt service and some of the things that are in the preliminary narrative. Because I think there are, based on my initial reading, there are a couple of contradictions. I don't think they're major, but they do require, I think, in my mind, some explanation.
Yeah.
So that may be one way to attack it. As opposed to having to read through and digest every element of that budget, which is it's difficult.
Right. I honestly don't know that we'd have the time to flip through the book. And Mike makes a good point. When you go and read through, you can tell that different individuals contributed different pieces, and so you'll see sort of the same thing said a couple times in different parts of the book and things of that nature. And there are maybe some contradictions based on when a contribution was made, and then maybe there was an update that was added somewhere else in the book. So, I think in a draft that would certainly be expected.
Can I just say that on warrant Article 4, we should actually formally talk about it at some point?
I think at our next meeting, we will probably walk through the entire warrant, just because we need to at least have questions ready for what's in there, prior to the 28th. So the majority of those groups can talk to them. I mean, we can always bring people back after that meeting on the 28th, but I think that
warrant Article 4 is proposed by us. It's our reserve funds.
Oh, the reserve, gotcha.
And so I think we should, it's philosophical, but nonetheless, we should be the ones actually holding discussion.
Right.
You mean 4A,
Yeah,
Article 4A, reserve funds?
yeah.
Yeah, and I think, we do a review each year as to whether or not we feel that amount needs to change, and it makes sense for us to review again this year.
You know, I don't know how some of you feel. As I went through this budget, and I went almost cover to cover. I mean, I did skip some of the smaller departments that,
Mike makes a good point when
you
you,
know,
when
the
you go
summary
and read
showed
through, you
weren't
can
really asking for a lot of money. But one of the things that struck me is that nowhere did I see, whether in the town manager's narrative or the department heads' narratives or in their capital proposal request, nowhere did I see any indication that unless those budgets were approved, the services would deteriorate. I did not see that. Now, I could have missed it, but I just did not see it, and it gives me a little pause. You know, we seem to be providing an expected level of service with a reduced 2021 budget, and you know, nobody's shouting that if we don't get this 2022 budget through, services are going to get cut.
So I'm looking at the budget table under the tab
Yeah,
that says budget table. So I'm just flipping to the back page of that section, and it does say that the recommended change FY 2021 to FY 2022 is 4.6%. So this budget has, you know, 4.5% increase in it.
yeah, I understand that, but my
Mhm.
point is that nowhere in any of the narratives did anybody say, if we don't fill this budget, services are going to be cut.
The school system did.
Excuse
The school system did?
Essentially.
Well, again, I
Yeah,
mean,
but wait, essentially or not, I mean, if we're going to be,
They're in their own separate budget book.
yeah.
in
I
the
understand.
document, nobody says that in the documentation. In the documentation, they just present the numbers. It doesn't say anything about what nobody presents options. If you don't like this budget, here's what you can do instead.
Yeah.
And I think to Mike's
Okay, and-
point, what he is saying is we've operated on austerity, basically, for the past however many months. And yet we've fulfilled our obligations as a town to the needs of the people. And so does everything have to be passed in propriety? Maybe not. We
Well,
don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a legitimate question that I expect every department at the all-day meeting to address. Why is their budget going up? What's causing their budget to go up? Are they increasing the service level? Are they becoming less efficient? Are they hiring more people? Why is the budget going up?
yeah, and I
But
think,
that's,
yeah, and like the school department did, I mean, their increase is expected at just under 5%, and I think the vast majority of that, actually, it may have been more than 100%, was related
2022 is
to the new
4.6%.
contract with the teachers.
So this budget
and
has
the raises, and it wasn't necessarily additional individuals, you know, being added.
I mean, the school department was quite clear. They're not increasing headcount. They're moving headcount around. They're shifting it amongst various positions, but they're not net adding total headcount in the teaching departments.
The library said the same thing. They are like combining two positions to make a full-time position, pulling out a part-time position, which is what you have to do in times of austerity.
But I mean, it's standard, it's, from my perspective, it's standard business practice that when you bring your budget forward, asking for comments and review and approval, you explain why it is it's changing.
And there's two sections. The community profile does talk to a lot of the changes that have been enacted and why they have been enacted. And was it the budget overview? Like they went, yeah, the budget overview. Every change was discussed with the narrative in the budget overview. So we may have additional questions on that piece I think, as to why those lines changed, definitely. But I think some of them went into specific head count if there was a change in head count.
I mean, asking the standard question, if your budget reflects a change in head count, either up or down, please tell us about it, and please be clear about why. That's a standard budget defense question.
Yeah, so it's tough. I think, Mike, although we see an increase in the budget, it's not necessarily an increase in individuals. So, yeah.
I'm not addressing anything specific. I'm addressing a broader picture. And Hank's point is well taken. You know, the standard defense and the standard question is, you've asked for X, tell us why. But in looking through the narrative pieces, I'm not seeing anything that says if we don't enact this budget, there's a possibility town services will be reduced.
So those are the,
Hey, let me finish my point, Jody. It leads me to believe, other than the contractually obligated and obligated funding that we have to do, why can't we just stay with the 2021? You know, it kind of sticks in my craw a little bit, but that's okay. Look, at the 28th meeting, we'll get to ask these questions. And I'm good with that.
John, I think that there's another level of detail that I would like to delve into with the departments that are major spenders. And that is, I would like to see benchmarking data that explains how Westborough's service level and cost of providing the service level compares to comparable towns. And, you know, the school department's been good about giving us that data, but I don't expect that question to be addressed in the all-day meeting. It takes too long. I expect them to address that in sessions with ourselves. And we're not going to ask the building and grounds people to do that. We certainly ought to ask the police department to do that, or the fire department, or other large spenders.
So where I struggle with this is that the bottom line is, for both the school and town, if you think of it as separate, they're 4.5+%. And all their initiatives, all the reasons that are up, whether it's a department or an initiative, are well defended, well defined, and they're hard to argue with from our position. But bottom line is, it's up 4.5%, and that means the average taxpayer is whatever it is, $500, whatever it is. And the way global companies deal with this is they can't go into every budget and say, and line item veto or whatever. They have to just say, no, you're only going to get 2.5%. Tell us how you're going to do it. And that's kind of where my mind is at. Is kind of like, all those individual things are good, but somehow we need to figure out a way to cut somewhere else if they're. And nothing is mandated as far as union contracts. That's the per person rates, but not the overall rates. So not to say I want to cut anybody, but I'm just saying that we shouldn't make that assumption that the contracts we just need to accept.
wait, can I follow up on that? The settled contracts we have to accept.
We have to accept the wage rates, but we don't have to accept the head count.
Oh, I gotcha.
Head count's not negotiated. Wage rates are negotiated. Benefits are negotiated. Head count's not negotiated.
Yep.
I used to work for a manager who explained to me very clearly, all costs walk on 2 feet. Head count is the key. Head count is the key driver of spending in any organization.
So should we recommend that the advisory finance committee only be 7 people?
Well, our
We have
average rate's pretty good.
it would be an interesting thing to do, but it would have zero impact on the budget because they're unpaid volunteers.
Start
Yeah.
paying us and then we'll draw straws.
Right.
Maybe we ought to have a volunteer fire department.
Think so.
There are communities in Massachusetts that have dominantly volunteer fire departments.
I
Hey,
don't think,
you don't remember the siren from the fire department back in the 70s? Calling the volunteers?
I didn't really,
with
In other
40,
towns, I remember that.
I don't, with 40,000 people in this town on a daily basis,
Not a good
Well,
thing.
I'm not suggesting that that's a reasonable thing to do, but it's, I mean,
It's one of them.
it's the kind of approach, if you want to see major changes in spending, you've got to, I mean, the reason you don't have a volunteer fire department is because you want the service level.
Right.
I mean, I live in an over 55 community. We're in the frequent flyer program for the ambulance corps. I wouldn't want that to change.
okay, so, so I think Mike had a good idea about sort of sectioning out the book here. And, you know, we can look, I would be happy to sort of review the debt service. I've done that in the past, and the debt service would also include, I think they've had a lot of the details in the appendix as well on future payments going out into multiple years. As we look at, you know, the potential library project and things of that nature, sort of seeing where we're at. I think if we've got liaisons for the police department and the fire department, you guys want to take those sections and just review and sort of confirm that it's in line with your expectations?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm
I would
meeting with
also,
the.
go ahead,
Go ahead,
sorry,
Melanie,
Mike.
sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I would also be happy to take health department if you want.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sean, you might want to republish the chart of who's the
you know,
liaison
the
for what.
liaison assignments, I had that. Let me send it out right after this call.
Yeah, I mean, I've totally forgotten who's doing what.
Yeah,
And then if there's any voids, if there's any empty spaces in the chart, people can volunteer to take items in the chart.
Okay.
I think there was
Yeah.
maybe a couple smaller ones, but
and I'm not remembering that. I thank you for that. I'm not exactly remembering what I volunteered for. I feel like I volunteered for a bunch of little things. But Melanie, I might want to confer with you on the health department. Over on the master planning committee, I'm on a subcommittee around public health. So I would sort of have some the data would help me in sort of two roles. But Sean, I don't remember if I volunteered for the health department or not as liaison.
I believe you did because we decided that it was a conflict for me to do it.
Yeah, I think I remember that conversation.
right.
Who's doing what?
I think I got here the week after you guys all got assignments, so I'm skating right now.
You might have some availability there.
Why'd you speak up? What's wrong with you?
Well, I think it's gonna come out when that list gets published.
Walter, you can just be the second on every committee so that everybody, you know, has everything has two eyes.
Hey, Sean, you can just put Leslie in all the empty spaces.
There we go.
Hank, are you gonna do DPW?
Yep.
Yeah, so as part of our analysis with each of those departments, should we take the capital improvement requests as well?
Generally makes sense to do that.
That sounds good. And that is in the back of the book. The capital plan, it's the second tab from the end. And Andrew, I like the way they've, the updates they've made to the capital plan. It looks good. They now also throw the bigger projects in there, like a potential library project and things of that nature, so you have a more complete picture of what may be coming down the road.
Are we going to revisit education as well? Or are we just going to,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, and I gotta
Sean,
check. Yes,
in the
Andrew.
past, I've gone through and looked at every single section of the line items and specifically at the head counts. That accounts for about 90% of the budget, and I put those all into a spreadsheet so we can see it trending over multiple years. I can aim to have that done by next week. I'll probably have most of it done, but it allows us to identify the biggest movers on a line-by-line basis. Are we okay with me focusing on that? Because I don't have any. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Andrew.
Sure.
So, each liaison will take their piece of the capital improvement plan. And Melanie, I believe the animal control replacement vehicle, no, I take that back. That falls under the police.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
animal
I
control.
think I'm the animal control liaison.
Oh. Let's see.
Beth, do you want to take that or you want me to cover it when I speak with the folks at the police department?
Why don't you do that as well? I mean, I tend to touch base with Melissa, our animal control officer, but she is under their budget and doesn't specifically have her own budget in the same way anymore.
Okay,
I mean, like, I don't know if her budget is sort of an archaic fact now.
okay. I'll keep you up to speed.
Yeah.
So did we have in the minutes, in any of our minutes, the new liaison, the updated liaison assignments?
Now, let me try and send it out to everybody right now. Just talk amongst yourselves.
On the capital projects, can I just ask, so it seems that there's levels of whatever, and I found one essential target and then 2 was necessary. And 3 was desired improvement. Does that sound right?
It does, yes.
Yeah, there are examples of all 3 of those in this book, as you described them.
I think that's it.
All right, it should have just gone out.
Okay. Oh, I have to go off of my.
And we have pretty much most of them filled. I think Cultural Council and Historical Commission are open. And actually, usually neither has an item or it's sort of de minimis, but I did see a placeholder in the town warrant for something for the Historical Commission. They do not currently have any information related to it, so it is possible somebody may need to reach out to them.
Their grand total budget's $14,660.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so I don't know what their warrant article would be. It mentioned special projects.
And their budget is $3,000 less than it was in FY 2020. Probably don't need to spend a lot of time worrying about them.
Let's see here. So
Hank, looking really quickly, you seem to have your name on a lot of liaison positions, probably somehow left over from your transition.
This is a
as
first edition.
chair. You want to shuck some of those to Leslie? To Walter?
I'll take a look at it tomorrow and just send a note.
that'd be great. So within community,
I also still have library.
No, that got switched to Ms. Board, I thought.
Oh, that's what I thought. So we just need to change the,
Agreed. So it didn't get switched to me.
What?
I didn't have a lot.
did you follow up with them?
she,
No, but I said I don't read. I was just kidding.
I know you
No,
had,
it didn't get switched over to me.
no, I think you had fire, right?
I
That
have
was-
fire.
Yeah,
That's all I knew of that I had.
Oh, but I thought you talked, okay.
Do you want library?
Or
Not
Walter?
particularly.
Okay,
so
If nobody else wants it.
I'll call on library this time.
Okay.
Okay. So I've got three. I've got health, MISGIS, which is a small line, and library.
Do you want me to take health from you?
I just sent you an email saying I'm happy to collaborate on that.
Okay,
Let's
that's
talk about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Walter, if you see anything you're interested in and want to reach out to anyone and, please feel free. So community development is at the building department and the planning board. Economic development, conservation. Oh, I see. Pardon me. So Paul, you actually have the majority of those, don't you? Or all of them?
Yeah, that sounds right. I seem to have lost my internet connection, so I'm not looking at the document you just sent.
Gotcha.
But some of those,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So if you're trying to group them, I could probably do that.
All right, great. And I'll send out a little note after this. Okay. So we've got public education, safety covered, public works. I think you have that. Health department. Culture and recreation, so we've got the library covered. We've got recreation covered. Andrew, you have that. And then the golf course, which may or may not eventually become education.
A recreation?
Recreation, pardon me, thank you. I'll take the debt service. General government, unless there's a section in here assigned to somebody, I'll take general government. I think most of them fall under the chair. Oh, and we still are due the detailed budget. I'll find out when we actually get that. Yeah, this is actually going to become a lot thicker. That section is empty currently. The budget overview includes changes to each one of the primary budgets. If people could just check the budget overview for their particular section. I'm happy to validate revenue, but for expenditures, it talks about community development, public works, and it has a little explanation on what each change is. Public safety, it sort of hits the highlights.
Who's going to bring school back to us? Is that going to be Beth and Hank?
Essentially, yeah.
That makes sense. And we'll check. We usually also get a book from the school.
Yeah.
So I don't know if somebody can send out just a status on sort of where that is.
We haven't gotten a call on it yet, but I'll look into it.
Okay. Mike, you and I want to take the community profile.
Okay.
So to make sure that that is makes sense, and others may be interested. It does include all the items that are related to the strategic plan. So it talks about exploring the Community Preservation Act. And some of it doesn't actually have, the items don't have cost associated with them. There may just be initiatives. There's one here that the fire chief mentions, but there's no costs currently identified for it. One here for the police chief regarding traffic improvements, no costs identified. So all right, was there a section? I think that covers the entire book as we have it so far, unless there's individual items in the appendix that people feel they need to go through. That's more supplemental information like the road management plan and things like that.
Can I ask, I'm just taking a random look at page 32 in the community profile. And I'm looking at the average single-family tax bill compared to the state average.
Yeah, there's an error there in that graph.
Yeah,
I was gonna say which one.
If you look at the chart below, the state average is like around 6,000.
yeah,
Well,
There's no line at the level that the state averages are. So
yeah.
there's something.
but the bottom one is Westborough, right? In 2015,
Yes.
it was about 8 and now it's about 10.
Correct.
But it's showing the state to have been at about 13 going up to, I don't know that that's the state average. I think that's something
Well,
else.
Look at the chart below.
Okay,
At the very bottom line, it's saying the state is nowhere near that. So there's something wrong with this
Yeah,
set. I think.
maybe that's our, they have our comparable towns. They picked out the benchmark towns.
That could be.
So it's potentially the benchmark towns, but it's not the state average.
Correct.
right.
Okay,
One of the two things are wrong,
yeah,
the chart or the graph.
okay.
I saw that too. And me. I was going to ask. Good question.
Okay, so is there anything in terms of rolling out assignments within the budget book that folks think we have overlooked? You good shape? Okay. Also, so John Arnold was nice enough to forward the town warrant. I don't know, did everybody get that right before this meeting? My guess is after the Board of Selectmen meeting tomorrow, there may be some updates, so I may have version 2 or something later in the week to send to people that may, may be more useful than that one. Any comments or questions on the budget book and what we need to do? Okay. Budget book, I'll send you the warrant. We're going to find out where the school budget book is, although we've gotten a pretty good summary of what to expect there.
Yeah, I believe there's going to be a warrant article that I'm not seeing here about paying the teachers the second half of the school year, the ones that are on COVID grants.
That's the one, that warrant article's up in the air.
Yeah,
It's in there, but it may be passed over.
Right.
At least I
Okay.
think it was in the version that was on the web.
Okay, because I'm not seeing it in this version, and I thought that there was something about that.
they may have pulled it because they got access to the second half of the CARES funds.
The
Yeah.
commentary was that they would probably, if they got the money, they would pull it. But at this point, the warrant hasn't closed, so it's kind of academic.
Right.
There was a couple other things that I also wanted to discuss. If folks feel comfortable moving on to another discussion.
Sure.
Our offsite is the 28th. I think the logistics are still to be determined. There are a few folks who may show up in person, but certainly there will also be a remote component to it. I don't know what people's thoughts are on that meeting and how they would like to participate if they're comfortable doing the day either remote, rather do a remote, or would rather be in person. And if enough people want to do it in person, we may end up doing it in multiple locations, something like that. So, but this is sort of get a poll of the group and see what their thoughts are.
I would be open to either format.
I would probably prefer remote because I'm going to have to cut out for a class and then
Okay.
come back.
Okay.
I agree with Jody. I'm open to either.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how you do a in-person. You're gonna have to hire the school gym or something to get all the people in that are gonna be there.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe each of the speakers was remote. And then it's 9 of us, 4 selectmen, manager, town manager, town manager, assistant town manager, maybe someone to take notes. So all day, there's probably about 16 of us, but then everybody else coming in and
Plus,
out.
you have to enable public participation because it's an open meeting.
True.
So I mean, I personally would prefer to do the whole, just everybody does it remote. It's all remote. It's a level playing field.
I agree with,
understand the logistics are tough, but that's Christie's problem.
Right.
I agree. I think actually remote is better. You can see the presentations better, and especially if people are wearing masks, you can hear and understand them better. So I'm definitely remote.
Right. No, it works. I mean, I think people have really adjusted to remote it's just a the way of doing things now. So, all right, any other questions, or
Is the school committee involved in this?
they will present. So they wouldn't be there for the whole day. They would be there for a slot to present their budget and warrant article items. So it'd be a pretty good chunk.
Yeah, given the number of hours and the way things are going right now, and this is in January, I would think that remote probably makes the most sense.
Okay.
Because you'd be in a space with people for a long time.
Right. Good point. Okay. All right. No, I think that's fine. I think the only concern maybe, and maybe we can come up with something for this, is if there's, say, 14, 15 people who also want to ask questions and things, how do we sort of work that so it everybody can get their questions in, and we make sure that everybody's heard. So maybe we'll just try and come up with some sort of system to
So
make sure
if you
everybody
look-
feels.
If we're using Zoom and you look on the side, if you click on participants at the bottom and you look on the side, participants can raise their hands, which
Yeah.
is a huge improvement over Google. Because you can literally have us raise our hands and call on us.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it worked pretty well for our joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen. I remember you were alternating calling on us, and then, but not so strictly that people couldn't make comments.
Right.
I don't think that it was overwhelming, but the combination of all those things, I think, makes it fine.
All right.
Dawn, can you see my hand raised?
Yes.
Okay. I haven't seen the hand raised icon in the gallery view before. It's kind of cool.
Or a thumbs up, or okay.
Mhm.
All right, excellent. I just wanted to get folks' thoughts on that as we get closer and make sure folks are, there you go, Walter, yep. Thumbs up. All right, cool, thank you. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention, and it was briefly in the email I sent out. So there was an issue at the senior center, I think, with the gas line. And so they did, they let me know they were going to need to do some emergency work. This was right before the holidays. So at some point, probably at our next meeting, they'll come before us and just explain. I think it ended up being a little bit more work than they'd initially expected. So it's likely that they will ask us if we can help them cover some of the costs of that. So I expect that that we'll have details and probably somebody to come and from the building department and talk to us about it. So a few minutes before 8, before kickoff, is there any final thoughts or comments folks had? We can go through liaison reports and things of that nature. Is there anything else people want to talk about before we get to that? All good. Anybody have a liaison report? Nobody?
I'm meeting with the police department tomorrow.
Thank you, Mike.
I'm meeting with fire on Thursday.
Thursday. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Oh, I'm also meeting with veterans tomorrow night.
Excellent. All right. So is there any other business, or are we ready to call it?
Is our next meeting now the 21st, a Thursday? Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. So that we have on the calendar the 21st and the 25th. And then before the meeting on the 28th.
Are we progressing on getting an admin?
Sorry, the what?
Are we progressing on getting an admin?
Oh, an admin. So they are working on that. There is a potential candidate. I guess what gets tricky is for the town staff, they have to be working less than 40 hours or otherwise it's all overtime we're giving them. So you sort of need somebody who's within like 25 to 40 hours a week, and then it's a benefit to them to try and do that. And you really need someone who maybe another board doesn't require them anymore, so they can then be moved over to us. So they're looking at trying to make that work, but it may take a little while. So they are trying to help us. So, yes. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a second?
Bradley, second.
Bradley seconds. All right, I'll go right around the room here. Ms. Hensley?
Hensley, yes.
All right, Ms. Ford?
Miss Board, roll tide. I'm sorry. Yes, that was a slip.
That's flip.
It happens, yeah. Mr. Leslie?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Roush, yes.
Mr. Beretti?
Yes.
Ms. Blumberg?
Blumberg, yes.
Mr. Hugel?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Bradley, yes.
Keo, yes. All right, Melanie, good luck tonight.
We don't need it, but
Who
thank
are
you.
they playing? Who are they playing?
Who
Ohio
are they
State.
playing?
Yeah.
Ohio.
Yeah, beat them.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome.
Thanks, John.
Night,
Good evening, all.
everyone.
Bye.
Night.
Cheers.